welcome. In this Python programming tutorial video, we will learn about a very interesting and equally important topic called decision or conditional logic. We know that when we execute a Python program, the code is executed line by line in a sequential order. But oftentimes, depending on one or more conditions, these programs need to execute either a first block of code or a second block, or execute the same block over multiple iterations. For loop and while loop can take care of situations where a block of code needs repetitions. But if we want to make our program more dynamic, we need to implement conditional logics or conditional statements, which basically control the flow of program execution using decisions and branching. If there is one takeaway that I want you to get from this video, it is that the conditional logics make our program more efficient by letting it decide which block to execute and which not to execute. Now in Python, we use if statements to implement decision logic or conditional logic. Therefore, it is also commonly known as conditional statements. Python's if statement can range from simple if condition, elif condition, which is short form of saying else if logic, as well as else logic. We will go over these different use cases with very practical examples in this video, and by the end of this video, you will be able to model a store that verifies user ID and control users' flow based on their age. We will also do another example that models score grading system that is commonly used in colleges and universities. But before that, here's a quick side note. I want to emphasize that your support means a lot to me. Making contents like this video is possible only when we have viewers and subscribers like you. So thank you for watching and supporting my videos. If you like these contents, please like, share, and subscribe. And also add your comments below if you have any questions. With that, let's move over to PyCharm and start coding. The syntax for if statement is something like this. If condition expression or boolean value of true or false, then we do all these block of statements. The condition expression uses comparison operators and membership operator to get a boolean value, or we can simply use boolean value. But it can really be any combination of various operators and data types. If you need quick refresher on operators in Python, you can find the link to the excellent tutorial at the top right of your screen and also in the description down below. Now let's see some example. I want to start from something simple with a if statement. And what I want to model in this simple example is a store that verifies their age. And if they are minor, they are told to come back. If they are above 18 or equal to 18, then they can enter the store for happy shopping. So to implement that, I want age as variable. Let's say we define age variable, which is equal to, and in this case, I want to get the input from the user for their age. Please provide your age. And then we will use that in if statement to compare their age. Now by default, this would be stored as a string data type with the input function. So to be able to make a comparison later in our if statement, we need to convert this to a float or an integer and then use if statement to verify the age. So if age is less than 18, semicolon, the statement in the next line would be indented, and that's how the interpreter identifies that the statement belongs to the if condition or if logic. And if they are less than 18, I want to print output to the user saying you are a minor, therefore you need to come back when you're 18. And that would be the only statement that would be run if the condition is satisfied. I also want to add another if statement saying if age is more than or equal to 18, then we will print something else to the user which simulates that the user is allowed to shop. So in this case, let's just say happy shopping, and the user is allowed to shop. So that would do. I would also add to show you how the interpreter looks at all these statements in the if condition or if logic. I would also just add another message as output. So let's say thank you message, and this thank you message is not part of any of these if statement, and we know that because it's not indented at the same level at these two print statements. So this if statement only has one block of code to execute, and this if logic has another single line to execute, and then this third print statement is outside of those two if statements. Let's give it a run. The program is asking us to input user's age or the customer's age, and if we provide anything less than 18, it should tell us that we are minor and you need to come back when you're at least 18. And when we run it again, simulating next person who comes into the store, and if he is 18 or above, in this case this guy is 19, and he can go happy shopping in this, and then the thank you message is printed. The thank you message, as you saw, is printed in either case, even if they are minor or an adult. As explained earlier, that's because this is outside of those two if statements. We can get the same result by using else statement here instead of if statement, and I'll show you what the difference is in a bit. So we can just say else and delete all of that, else print that. So when we run this, it should give us a similar output. Now, just to show you how this becomes more efficient than the previous version where we had two different if statements, I want to rerun this again. And this time I have two different versions. First one is using two different if statements, and the second one is using if else logic. And I deleted the second input function just so that we can use the same user input for both the versions. I want to add breaker points here and go to the debug mode. And basically it's asking for user input for the age. So when we enter a minor's age, now it's going into the if logic and if checking for that logic whether it's under 18. And when we press F8, because this condition is satisfied, it goes on and print the message that says you are a minor. And when we do F8 again, it goes into the next if statement and tries to execute that code as well. The age is still 17. Now this condition is not satisfied, so it skips that print statement and goes over to the last print statement to print the thank you message. Similarly, in our if-else logic, it goes into the if condition and tries to verify if the age is less than 18. And if it does, it prints message that you are a minor. Now, when we press F8, it would skip the else logic because the if logic is already satisfied. So it won't even execute all these else statements or even try to go there. And it directly goes to the next block of code skipping that else logic. So this is how if-else logic makes the program more efficient. Let's make this example a little bit complicated, and this time I want to use if-else statement with a nested statement. So what I would like to do is add a condition that if the user does not have a form of ID verification, for example, let's assume that the user does not verify their age. So in that case, I want to have an if statement printing out the message in that situation and do this bit of code under the else statement. And also, I would like to add additional criteria that if the user is adult and if that adult is a senior citizen, then they would qualify for a special discount program. How would I implement that? So, like I said, I would like to implement a nested if statement in this example. Let's exit out of this debug mode. And in this, I have the age as user input. And the first thing I would like to check is if the age is not provided. So how would I say that is? If not age, then I would print a message. And that message can simply be something like your ID could not be verified, so please come back with your ID. So something like this. And then I want to do this under the else statement. So everything here goes inside an else condition. So if not age, I would print this. And if the age is provided, then I would look for these conditions, whether the customer is an adult or not. So this portion is still checks for the customer as whether they are minor or an adult. If they are minor, they would print this. If they are adult, inside this nested else, what I would like to add is another if condition, and I would check whether the adult is also a senior citizen or not. So it would be a nested if statement inside here. If age is less than 62, then I would print happy shopping, and else I would print another message saying you qualify for a discount. So a welcome message with a you qualify for a 10% discount for being a senior citizen. And this print statement would go all the way outside the first if else logic. So we have age input from the user. If the input is not provided, meaning in terms of programming here, we just enter a blank line. And if blank line is entered, that would simulate identification was not provided. In that case, it would print out this message. And if identification is provided, then it would go to the else logic. And inside that else logic, it checks whether age is under 18, customer being a minor in that case. Else it would go to nested if else logic, where they would also check for the customer being senior citizen or not. And if they are not senior citizen, they would be shown regular happy shopping message. Otherwise, they are senior citizen and they would qualify for special 10% discount. Now we might get into a slight issue here. Let's just give it a run and see if it is working or not. So first logic I want to check is this blank line entered. That is the new code that we added. And I think this might be an issue here. So yeah, so we get an error here, and that's because we are converting into float value here. Could not convert a string into float value because we are entering a blank line. If we were entering any value here, then it was fine, but then it's trying to convert a blank string into float value, and that's raising that error. So We can fix that with moving out this float function out of here, and if the string is blank, we print this out, else we convert the age with that float function here and give it a try again. Now we enter a blank line. Age cannot be verified. You come back with your ID. And in case if we provide an age, let's say a minor, 9-year-old try to get in. You are a minor, you come back when you're at least 18. Adult comes in, let's say 34 years old. They can do happy shopping. As long as they're under 62, they get the same message, happy shopping. If a senior citizen 62 or older gets in, then they are shown a welcome message with special discount promotion program. Now, like in the previous example, this thank you message is being shown in every case because it is outside of this if-else statement logic or nested if-else statements. I hope this gives you a better understanding of using if-else logic. Now, next example I want to show is if, elif, and else logic. And for that example, I want to give you a brand new scenario here. What I want to implement is the score grading system that is implemented in colleges. Now, to make this school grading system, instead of A's, I would need score. The input would be something like this. Just enter your score. Instead of converting to float here, I can do that up here. Once I get that score, I would be running if statements and say if score is more than or equal to 90, then my grade would be A. Now instead of else, I would say elif, which is basically short form of else if, and my score is between 80 and 90, then my grade would be B. So I'll just copy that here, and how I can use operators here is less than or equal to. So that means score is more than or equal to 80, and also score is less than 90. The score being equal to 90 is already captured here. So this would be capturing any value that's from or including 80 and under 90, and that would be a grade of B. So we can copy this, make duplication of that, basically for grade C, and then between 60 and 70 for grade D, and anything beyond that would be grade. So we say grade equals to F for failing the course. Now instead of that thank you generic message, print out the score and the grade that they get. Now let's try to run this, see a few examples. So let's say somebody gets a 99. That would be a grade of A. As long as they are 90 and above, they should get an A. If 89.9, that would get down a grade of B. Under 60, let's say 59.9, would be failing the course. So I think the code is working fine. I think this is an excellent example of using if, elif, block, and else block to get the grade of the student based on their score. Python also supports if statement using a single line or single line if statements. We can do a modification of this example that we just did. It would be a shorthand if, and how we can do that is we have this if score is more than or equal to 90, then we put that on the same line, and we can even accommodate multiple statements here separated by semicolon. So if we have a print statement, let's say for grade A we get print excellent. So the message would say that you did an excellent work. So this whole thing would be one if statement, and then the else statement can be brought into a single line in a similar way, separated by semicolons. The message would be just good work. And let's make that change to all the grades. So this is similar to the previous example. The only difference is we have a shorthand single line if statement, elif statements, and the else statement, and each block has multiple execution steps or individual statements separated by semicolon, and one of those statement is a print statement, just so that you can see the printout how the execution was happening. Let's give it a run. Let's try some scores. So again, start with a 90. That should give an A and an excellent message. And so now it is showing a message, your score, and your grade. And when you run it again for the failing case, so let's say somebody got a 30 score, you are hopeless, your score was 30 and you get a grade of F. Just run one more. Let's say somebody gets 61, and if we're wondering what that should get, just hit the enter, you need improvement, you just got a grade of D for that score. So this is how we can do shorthand single line if, elif, and else statements separated by semicolon. Python also supports shorthand if-else statement formatting. So for this, let's go back to the previous example where we received A's as input. If A's is above certain number, in this case 18, we want to print attribute adult. Otherwise, we want to print minor. Let's create a variable named attribute, and we will assign, in the beginning, we will assign a value of none to this. We get the input age, and then we do something like attribute. We modify the value of an attribute to adult if age is more than or equal to 18, else attribute value would be changed to minor. And at the end, we want to print that statement, you are with the attribute, let's say exclamation. And hopefully this runs well. Provide your age. If I'm a minor, let's say 17, you are a minor. If I'm an adult, let's say 90, you are an adult. So what's happening here is we receive the age input. We had the attribute none at the beginning. Based on the input integer value converted for that string age, it's comparing age to number 18. If it is above or equal to 18, then attribute value is changed to adult. Otherwise, the attribute value is changed to minor. And at the end, the print statement just prints you are, whether you are adult or minor. So that's it for this video. In this video, we looked at the conditional statement in Python. Especially, we looked at how we can create if statements with a simple example, and then progressively we expanded that example to elif logic, which is a short form of saying else if logic. We also did if, elif, else logic. We implemented that into two different programs. The first one was age verification for the user to control customers' flow into any store. The second one was implementing if, elif, else logic to create a grading system. If condition or conditional statements is very important topic, so don't hesitate to ask any question in the comment section below. And also don't forget to drop your like, share, and subscribe. Until next video, thank you.